Welcome to Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and tastemakers.
Brought to you by Chord Real Estate, your key to the heart of Nashville. I'm Steve Luther alongside my co-host Van Hohe.
Here we peel back the layers of Nashville's vibrant scene, sitting down with the innovators, creators, and leaders who shape our city. From music to business and everything in between, we dive into the journeys that have brought them to where they are today.
We're here to uncover the stories behind the success, the passion driving their pursuits, and why they've chosen Nashville as their stage. It's about the people who dream big, push boundaries, and make this city truly unique.
So join us as we explore the heart and soul of Nashville through the eyes of those who know it best.
Well, today we're delighted to host Scott Green, founder and CEO of Profit Drivers, a consultancy renowned for transforming pricing strategies for organizations globally. With over 2 decades of expertise in enhancing profitability for companies like Stanley Black Decker, Panduit Corporation, and BP, Scott has established himself as a leading figure in strategic pricing. His work is characterized by a deep understanding of market dynamics, a mastery of advanced analytics, and an exceptional ability to implement transformative strategies that drive revenue growth and profitability. Scott's leadership extends beyond just consulting. He's a thought leader in the pricing field, often speaking at major conferences and contributing insights that shape the industry standards. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you having me.
Of course. Well, talk to us about how you got started with Profit Drivers. What led to that?
Yeah, I think back about 25 years ago. I was mid-career with BP, a big oil company. Don't hold that against me.
No.
It was years ago. That was before the big oil spill. That changed everything for me. But so 25 years ago, I was in the middle of a career with BP, and they tapped me to go to London, family and everything. I didn't know what the role was going to be or the job.
That's the B of the BP.
There you go. And so,
in case anybody's wondering.
So they sent me over there with my kids, and I got in a big project where I was focusing on this. We were revamping how we did our business, like a number of us do occasionally, and kind of reset ourselves. And pricing was the focus area that they put me in. And I didn't really know what it meant. I was a salesman. I was a marketing person. I did product management before that. Really fell in love with it because pricing's, you're in the real estate business. It's about understanding the value and connecting to that value. And it's amazing how big companies just really neglect this space. And it's so critical to their revenue and profitability and their success. So I just found a place where I could connect all these things, and I could be a conduit for people that don't live in that space. It's very niche. I don't think probably many pricing people.
No, it's
and
the
your
first
careers the first time. And it is, you said it before, a potentially boring subject. I appreciate that. I'll try to give a little color to it.
Did I say it was boring?
No.
I'm so rude.
But no, I started diving into it. And it was a global role. And we were talking earlier about your international real estate business, and so that international feel, I got it real close to the cultures and the businesses and how they're different in different parts of the world. And so that made it really interesting to me. It wasn't just like this geeky kind of numbers and concepts. It was actually, how do I turn this into something that matters to people in Malaysia and Australia and different places. So
does that mean you were setting the price for gas?
That was a claim to fame for a while until that oil spill.
So we have him to call.
Well, that was years ago. That was probably about 10 to 12 years ago. We moved back to the States at the same time as the big oil spill.
Gotcha.
And there was no more embarrassing to be meeting people and saying, I work for the company that's polluting the Gulf of America, I guess, right?
That's right, yeah.
That's what I hear.
But so I liked that with BP. I really enjoyed it. I got that global exposure. They sent me back to home, which was near Chicago in Indiana. Found another company to do this with. I thought this is either a point we've all had that where you kind of, I stay with something that I just got in the middle of, or I take a different path. And I thought, there's something to it. I'm just going to go all in on it. And so 25 years of that, working for companies driving this kind of value and billions of dollars of value for them, which is good numbers. They talk to Wall Street about the kind of stuff I do, but I didn't get a chance to participate in that as much as others.
Right.
So Profit Drivers is about starting that and bringing that kind of capability to companies of all sizes. And I can help drive that. I can see some of the success out of that. So that's where kind of pricing
very cool
as a space came from.
Wow.
No, I started in the corporate world myself prior to real estate.
Really?
Made the transition into real estate, being a business owner. What was that transition like for you, going from something so super corporate? I mean, I guess you're still dealing with a lot of these large corporations, but from going to a more corporate environment to you're the guy in charge.
I probably should have talked to you first, because we don't quite know you. It's like a good idea, and in corporate world, we analyze something and we can sit in a room and kind of do a big PowerPoint, and everybody goes, "That's a great idea," and then you go implement it, but
and still get paid at the end of the day.
Exactly. So coming out and having to figure this out on my own, and literally make payroll each month, and literally get through the first year to get the word out. I've been in this space a long time. A lot of people knew me. I still had to establish my company and who I was, not as a corporate entity, but as the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I used to speak at conferences, and I was the VP of pricing at Stanley Black Decker. Well, I could get into a conference and that would have some credibility. Now I'm another consultant out there, just like anybody else. And so that's been the journey, is kind of building this in a way. I brought my kids into the business.
Very cool.
I have a couple of 20 somethings that are involved in it. And this was another step where I think this was a good idea. I jumped in, you hear all the horror stories, but it's worked out really well. They're good kids. Doesn't mean we don't have our challenges or conflicts, but they're learning a lot from just, how do you start a business? Like I would have, when you jumped out and did this on your own, like, where do you start? Health insurance. Like I'm still dealing with, we didn't get the right, I got to switch health insurance. Get just these details that you never had to deal with before. So that's a big leap.
Do you feel like that transition has kind of altered your view on pricing somewhat, or?
Yes, it's the challenge of building a business and the value to your name, to your real estate business name and what you've built there. Yeah, you kind of feel a sense of pride in that, and you got a sense of what that means and what it should mean to who our customers are.
Right.
We're behind you in terms of the years behind it. We're only a few years into it, building our brand, but we tried to pick a name, Profit Drivers, that kind of had a unique connotation to it. So I didn't call myself Green and Associates. So what was that?
Right.
I could kind of jumpstart the conversation.
Nobody would believe you anyway. Exactly. You worked at BP.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, sitting on the other side, coaching somebody, I coach somebody within the business to take actions and to create value. I didn't sit on this side, try to convince you to pay me money to help you make that money. That's it's some salesmanship that I've had some sales experience before, but not, this is different. And it's going well. We're learning a lot, and it's ramping up. I've got a lot. I'm leaving next week for 3 weeks in Australia, New Zealand. We've got a pilot project there, going to Europe from there. So this little business that started here in Nashville is kind of now starting to become a global thing, not unlike yours. So
why Nashville? What brought you to Nashville?
That's an interesting choice. So I was 7 years with Stanley Black Decker. They hired me in this business in Miami. So I came here from Miami. Sounds like a great place. During the COVID, it was nice to be in nice weather.
Sure.
And all that, but we're empty nesters at that point. So my wife and I are not from South Florida, and it's a great place. I love it. Didn't want to stay there forever.
Great place to visit.
Exactly. Great place. Great beaches. A lot of great things there.
Great food. Great people. Really
great people. And but at the end of the day, what we had just invested in some real estate here, short-term rental market. So you guys are familiar with that and the height of that. So about 3-4 years ago, bought a few properties.
Cool.
Loved it. Started coming back and forth from up here, and then we kind of just went on one of these trips where we just enjoyed East Nashville, especially where we live. We're just like, why don't we just live here? Why are we living in South Florida? Kind of bored. We'll come up here, and this life's been great since. I just love the city and what it gives back to you, and especially if you put a lot into it. I think it's an impressive place. A lot of
Great place.
Great place.
So as you're out consulting with businesses on pricing and profitability,
Yeah.
what are some of the similar issues you see people dealing with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the area of pricing, like you're hearing a lot of rhetoric right now around tariffs and inflation.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
You felt it from before, and like you're hearing more of it, and there's some realness to that.
Right.
So there's definitely some things that are going to affect it. It's when and how long it takes to actually hit your table or hit your life. And so the big thing that people are talking about is just, what do I do? The companies panicked a bit in the US because this isn't like Russia or Argentina or Mexico or Brazil.
Right.
They're used to prices rise and things change. So here in the US, you're not used to this. And so when this happened last time, remember everybody's reaction. I mean, some of us are more affluent and it doesn't hit us as badly as others.
Sure.
There's people in the restaurants here in town get affected, tips get affected, things like that. So there's a big worry about this. Last time they just went ahead and pushed price. If my costs raised, I just pushed that price into the market. Now we got a lot of backlash. I mean, there's some for the right reasons, gouged, some that was what they thought was a fair price, but it hurt their businesses. It's not an easy decision to make. It's a bold decision to raise the prices, so I think that's a particularly important topic that people are thinking about now.
Right.
And then
do you work with small businesses on pricing?
Yeah.
Or is it major corporations only?
It has a bigger number and turn when you get to a bigger company
Right.
to help them make a little change, and it can make a big number. So I would say, you tend to go there. They'll pay for it.
Sure.
That said, all size businesses I've worked with, I like solving the problem. It's a puzzle piece kind of thing. You kind of figure out, okay, what are you trying to do? What is your business? How does it connect to the market? Who are your customers and how do they value what you sell? And then you can kind of look at their competitors and create a logic path to the right answer. So you can do that with a small business too. Obviously, larger businesses are interesting because you think they're more organized than they really, really are. Maybe you experienced that when you were in corporate world. Like, it's amazing how big companies and how lackadaisical they are.
Right.
Some of these things, and it's worth a lot of money to them if they get it right. So yeah, that's why.
Do you find that as you're talking to these companies, what's going on with politics and the global markets, it makes some impact on decisions that are made? Like, you're going through a high inflation period. People are expecting prices to go up somewhat.
Yeah.
But you also have, you got to have this thing in the back of your mind. Like, you also have to be a good citizen and not gouge someone. Like, what's the balance there, and how do you deal with
profit
that?
drivers, Steve, not community investors. It's profit drivers. It's up and to the right.
There's some truth to that. I do think that the gouging things hurt some feelings of certain corporations, and there's certain corporations that it's all about their survival and so that cost that's going up, I got to pass that along because I've got to keep my P&L, I got to keep my profit and loss statement, and I got to make sure I'm hitting certain numbers there, or I can't invest in these new ventures and these employees I have get paid off of this. So if I have less money to give, in their minds, I have to cut people or I have to raise prices. There's others that realize that there's probably a little middle ground there at times, and I think it's an interesting challenge. I have to help them either way. So that's where your comment about I got to help the ones that want to make the money, and I also help the people balance. Really, I get to their objectives. So I'm not telling them their strategy. I'm not setting their price. I'm helping them think through and
if they're a publicly held company, are they more likely to need to just keep that profit margin and keep it pumping?
The big difference.
And if it's privately held, they can hold off a little bit to see how
they can look longer
things go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key statement is that public companies have a different dynamic than the others. They can take a longer view.
And if they don't, then they're out.
That's right.
So
It's not that the private,
It's not that they're evil.
Yeah, that's right. And the private look at these things, but then they kind of, so we're not far from down the road. Franklin is Mars is a big privately held company.
Right.
And so what are they thinking about? They're looking at costs too. It's not that they're immune to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to make a longer term view based on, is this going to sustain? Because these costs go up, but then at some point they settle and maybe drop down.
Sure.
The big argument should have as a consumer, or any of us should have, is, are your costs, if I bought that before at a higher price, and your costs are lower now, so you're seeing some record profits going. So those costs don't always just stay up and are going to be there. It's hard to, it's what companies think about. Little secret is this: I don't like to pull my prices back. I don't go lower ever. So it's always go up, up. And that the dilemma, I think, the moral dilemmas that you talked about.
Are you able to go there with them and have those discussions?
Yes and no. I think their pay grade conversation, point of the conversation where it's like, okay, I'll give my recommendation, but at some point somebody at a higher level is going to make this decision.
Sure.
I do have to give it in terms of how I think they think and what is a fair based on how they. But you got to, you're feeling out the moral compass of the people you're working with. That's a key part of the dilemma.
That's good.
Because you think, just to remember, I've got to put new prices out there, and I have no idea how my customers or anybody are going to react to this.
Right.
It isn't always good.
Right.
Sure.
So this is like it's not an easy decision when they have to lean into that. So
now I would imagine part of this pricing strategy, you're talking about people and processes and systems, and how all those things might affect which way you go, one way or the other. I'm just thinking like, I see more and more as wages go up. You can go into McDonald's and you're ordering from a screen now versus ordering from someone at the counter. How much of that do you get into where you're looking at, do we need to make some modifications in terms of staffing or systems or things like that?
That's a great question. You're thinking like the GPT thing, right? Like, is a algorithm going to tell me what decision to make, or do I even need people sitting in the seat to make those decisions?
Amazing.
It's an interesting challenge. I think we're all trying to figure out. I think in the area of pricing, the thought I put around it is, this is like the lifeblood and decisions for your company. It's the strategy and how you're going to make your money, and you're right or wrong based on those decisions. Are you prepared to give that over to a algorithm,
to
make that decision for you, to react and understand, and then make the decision you would make? Or
because it's the primary pain point for your clients.
That's right. So I think the thinking part of pricing, I don't see that being replaced, because I think you've got to sit there and look at what various algorithms are telling you and kind of make a decision as to what we predict the competitors are going to do and what I do. On the other end of the spectrum, are there some people sitting there pushing paper, running some numbers that probably don't have to do that in the future? I think that's happened. That's going to evolve. But I have a hard time in this particular space of turning that over to completely systemized.
Sure.
That said, look, I've had roles where I had to take a big manual process and reduce the number of people because it actually took too long. You had to respond to salespeople who are in the street in front of the customer and they're waiting for a price, and you can't. I got hours before I can get this. So we put systems in place to fix that. So I think you hit on a couple of things to me. The system side's really evolving and will always evolve, and you hear a lot about software and organizations pushing that, and that will continue to improve things. But man, the turning your business over to an algorithm just to figure it out, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I will say the third tranche of this is interesting, because I get involved with, you guys all buy stuff on Amazon. Like, how do they set those prices?
Yeah.
And I think you probably heard some of these things, but they're literally testing every time one of us come on. We're not three going to see the same exact offer, the exact price, where you put what the product means, what it is, the pictures, all are varying at the same time. They're constantly A/B testing, kind of, you've heard that term, but they're constantly testing. What do you respond to? What price points? So dynamic pricing is a thing. It's
Mhm.
real, and certain businesses
Amazing.
have to have like real-time prices.
Like airline flights.
Airline flights.
When I go on,
yes, yeah, those are
they'll
those
go
are,
on twice because it goes up.
And what do you think they're pricing based on?
I think they just know it's me. Every one of these people, they know it's Van. Oh,
Certainly all the contractors.
push it up. Push it up. They don't even let me go
Oh,
to the
it's
job
Van
site.
calling.
Oh, yeah.
It's
They're
double the price.
They're like, oh, no, you're not meeting the contractor. Price goes up 30%.
Is this because you're booking the night before?
Yeah,
That could be a factor. No, but it's a capacity thing. It's a capacity, and they're profiling you, and they're looking at capacity, and they're seeing what you will pay. And if you keep refreshing, that price doesn't get better.
Right.
You notice that?
Oh, I know.
The trick of the trade, I think you probably have heard this. A lot of people know this, but you just go find somebody else's laptop and go, and you'll get a different price. But it's hard to figure how they actually price that seat.
Right.
It's complex. Interesting area.
So with pricing he said, often they don't want to go down. They only want to go up.
Of course.
Tesla, didn't they reduce their prices like 20 or 30%?
I don't know. I
You know,
don't have a Tesla, Van.
But
and people are going nuts because the people who paid that full price a couple years ago.
So now you see why people like the lower prices. It's a sensitive
What
subject.
do you think is going on in that mind? Why is he reducing his price that much?
So you're constantly bringing new products to the market.
Yeah.
And you're constantly adapting to competition and like where they're priced.
Mm.
So imagine his competitors are lower priced and he's not getting the market share he wants. And then,
but who's he competing with? Really, it's the electric Mustang. I mean,
fair.
Come
enough.
on,
it's not exactly,
yeah.
But he's he's a private or a public company, so he's trying to push and. His board's looking for growth and profitability. So lowering prices is not what you normally do, but usually it's because you're trying to position another product.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Cybertruck, right? That came out after he lowered the other prices. So.
Exactly. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a similar thing with real estate when we're working with builders. When you're building a neighborhood.
Way to bring it back to real estate. Did you see that?
You got to be careful not to make the current people that already purchased angry,
right?
Because they overpaid or whatever, so you got to be real careful not to have to lower, or you're going to have a lot of upset neighbors that, as you're trying to sell other houses in that neighborhood are going to talk. So,
and they will.
It's tricky. Yeah, I bet that is a trick. I've always wondered about that. I've not got involved in kind of the developmental side of pricing. Especially in this market when it was going so fast.
Oh, yeah.
Sure you guys got a whole master class on pricing in a dynamic, fast moving marketplace.
I think it's one of the secret powers of Steve and Ashley. Is their pricing. Because they will literally price
pretty good at it.
And that's exactly where it lands when it sells. Even if somebody else, if we're competing to get a listing or whatever, and some other realtor will be like, oh, we can get you this. And they'll be like, we can get you this. Sure enough, when it sells, even with the other person, they get exactly what they say.
Mm-hmm. Know your market.
They do.
Know your customers.
They do.
Yeah. What about packaging? Do you get into packaging at all when you're talking about pricing? Like, I'm just thinking from personal experience.
Yeah. I'm all about the packaging.
I've got a particular type of chocolate milk that I like to drink.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive chocolate milk.
What brand is this? I like brands. So
are we plugging brands? Are we okay to do that?
Nobody's paying us. We can say whatever we want.
Promised Land, if you want to send over some chocolate milk, hey, I'm for it. So I like Promised Land chocolate milk. And, it comes in.
Is this like?
I don't remember the exact quantity.
What is this?
It's either, I don't know. It's in milliliters or something. I don't know. It's metric. Yeah. Why is it a metric?
That's come from Europe.
It was sort of like a liter, and the pricing started to tick up a little bit as we were going through the last couple of years of inflation, and then suddenly I think it's only been within the last 2 to 4 weeks, the bottles got smaller.
Well,
The
that's what they
pricing
do.
didn't change, but the bottles got
That's what they
smaller.
did. So they do with the toothpaste.
Shrinkflation.
That's it.
That's
They don't
exactly
change the price. They change the size.
exactly. That's what the consumer brands can do.
Yeah.
To try to keep. So what they're focusing on is people will pay a price point, and if I move that price point up too much, you stop buying her as frequently. So they're clear.
Oh yeah.
So it's like that in real estate too. You know, when you're looking at a
again.
Is the buyer more driven by the ultimate price, or is it a price per square foot? Like, you know, what do we need to play with there? That, I mean, I think that comes up in probably every industry, but
yeah.
How much of that do you deal with in pricing strategy,
Well,
figuring out packaging and those kinds of things?
How you bundle things together, you know, like Amazon bundles things together. So
they're always making the suggestions.
Yeah. I deal a fair amount in consumer, and then I deal a lot in like what they B2B or you know, that kind of business. That doesn't have as much of that packaging piece, but I think how the collective value, what you expect. You know, we have to figure out that math. We have to ask the customer, find out what customers want, they're willing to pay. So did you stop buying when the price got up a certain level, or were you one of you were going to buy it anyway?
He's a diehard.
I'm going to buy it anyway. I gotta have my Promised Land chocolate milk.
So that
not Hershey's. Promised Land.
I have very few vices. Okay.
Oh,
very few.
We'll ask Ashley after we turn off the mic if that's true or not. Oh,
I gotta have my Promised Land chocolate milk.
Yeah. So that's kind of annoying because you're saying, look, I'll pay more. I just want this amount, and they've just taken that away from you for the price point.
Basically.
Yeah.
You just let them know that, you know, the internet's going to tell them. It's going to know that you said that.
I'm very strict with how much I'll drink in a day because it's not good for me. It's a kidney stone thing.
Oh, that's
unfortunate.
You're sharing a lot now.
I'm sharing way too much probably, but yeah, so I have like an inch in the glass to take.
Oh Lord, here we go.
My supplements and, you know, medications and all that stuff.
Okay.
It's a very long story about me taking medications and supplements. But,
yes, it is.
But there's big pills, and it's easier to take when you're swallowing it with chocolate milk than it is with water.
Well, there you go.
Maybe that's just me, but I gotta have my chocolate milk.
And it needs to be Promised Land.
It's got to be Promised Land.
Okay.
This is the best tasting chocolate milk. Promised Land. Come on, hook me up.
Scott's like, why did I come here today?
No, Scott, what is up with the eggs?
Yeah. Oh,
what is up with the eggs?
You know, I don't know when this is going to air. Maybe already resolved, and we've all got like batches of eggs in our doorsteps. But what is that about?
Bird flu? Is that what I'm hearing about that causing that?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, bird flu. It's not. It has to be more than just the threat of bird flu. It has to actually be the bird flu, and they have to be careful. I started off in the food business way back when, in a company called Cargill back in the day. We made hot dogs and bacon.
Yeah,
and you know, it's a when you've got like an issue like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much.
Right.
To be done, and there's less eggs, and what do? And I think the other you have with the deportation issue. I think you're probably reading a bit, and I am too, curiously about the effect of deportation and production on farms in the Midwest.
Oh, right.
And if things could change, but I think that's going to affect our food prices because if they don't have anybody to harvest, they're going to let stuff literally going to rot on the vine.
Wow.
So these are, but these are temporary. These should be things that they adjust to, but short term, these are going to be issues. But I thought it said $7.50. I think I saw.
We just went from chocolate milk to eggs to immigration. Wow. This one's for the books right here.
Pricing ranges.
I'm telling you, we even mentioned Elon.
Do you find that pricing strategies, things you look at, are pretty similar across industries, or are there nuances to different industries?
Yeah, I'd say it's 70-80% of it's consistently similar things, but the dynamics, how you price commercial real estate, how you price
Right.
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk. How you price, I guess residential real estate as well. These are all kind of same structured, nuances different.
Sure.
I think the consumer products are something that's got a special focus where you're really got to dial in.
Right.
Does he like the packaging? Does he,
right.
the name, the size? There's a lot more there than other businesses or B2B businesses don't, real estate, you don't think about some of these things, but packaging, how you position it, everything, it's really, it varies, right? And it varies around the globe. So we were talking about international too. What they value in China doesn't land in some other parts of the world or vice versa. So only the really kind of those Hermes and those kind of brands can kind of, you see something consistent. Like you should see the same.
I love that he called it Hermes.
We don't correct people.
Please correct me. Did I say it? Clearly, I'm not a customer. They're luxury bands.
It's Hermes.
I do hope they edit that one out.
Please do.
No.
I call it Hermes just to make Van mad.
He does. And did you even see a reaction on my face?
You didn't.
There was not a reaction. I had it perfectly. I was like, yeah.
He was stoking that one.
He was. As he does, as the chief troublemaker of Chord Real Estate.
Are there any like common misconceptions about pricing?
It's all about greed. We were talking before about,
yeah.
You're just trying to raise prices. I don't think it's about, it's not about that. In terms of what we actually spend our time doing, it's not about trying to raise prices all the time. It's actually trying to figure out what people will pay for, make it and try to connect some dots and make the company more money. It's a lot about internal. So I'll go to a big company and help them understand that, you don't have good process in place and people are kind of put their, licking their thumb and putting to figure out what the right price is. And actually we just need a little more data and you can make a better informed decision, but it's what normally people would pay. I'm just trying to help them stay a little more in control, a little less all over the place. Like when you see, real estate that is mispriced for the market, too high or too low, you know what happened.
Of course.
So we're just trying to get people to, learn how to put a little logic to it, a little more discipline, and that helps companies make more money, which isn't about raising the prices. So I'm not, and I didn't set the price of fuel that we were talking about before. I set the structure of it.
I just wanted to blame somebody,
But a lot of the price, and you've heard this over the years, but a lot of the price in many of the states is about taxes.
That's right.
It's a bigger driver of the real price. So we've all driven to different states and seen, just go over the border and you see a different
dramatic
price. So that where pricers are not setting those kind of things and gouging people. It's more the structure of it and trying to put some logic in place. But
have you done any work in pharmaceuticals?
I personally haven't, but people on my team have. Yeah,
that's
a trickier one.
That gets people riled up.
This is a side thing, but just because you were at BP, I honestly had heard that for like gasoline prices, like the oil companies are pretty strict with what they'll allow in terms of like a profit margin. Like you've got like all these add-on taxes from the federal government, state, whatever.
Yeah.
But the actual profit on selling fuel is like it's pretty strict.
It's pennies.
Yeah,
it's pennies.
Yeah, I've heard they don't
pennies.
Yeah, they make their money in the convenience store.
Yeah, in the store,
not at the gas pump.
And most of the big oil companies don't own. They when back in the day is early 2000s, 2005 or so. Companies were still owning those. So if you went into a BP or an ExxonMobil or whatever, they own that. They call them C-store, convenience store. They've sold that to somebody else now, so they're just in the fuel business. But it's pennies. It's pennies on the dollar, not nickels and dimes. And, So you're right. But it's a lot of volume, and it's it's a very integral part of people's lives. So there's a lot of sensitivity to prices, and so they've tried to explain to everybody over time. But every time the prices go up 50 cents, everybody's blaming the oil companies and think the oil companies are getting rich.
That's right.
And I will tell you that fuel pricing is, and this I don't want to go, like get too deep into it, but when you hear that they've made record profits after they've raised prices, it's not the retail part of it where they're selling it out. It's actually where they're pumping it out of the ground and they're making more out of the barrel of oil.
Got it.
And then they push some of that to their competitors and they push some of that into their own. But that's where they're making the money, is on the other side of the business.
Sure.
On the
Well, I remember when Bill Clinton was running for office, and he had a major moment of connection with people when he talked about how he said when he was filling up his tank and the price was higher than the number of the gallons, he knew something was off.
Well,
right?
we'll pass that away,
Yeah.
aren't we? Now?
But I mean, that was a big moment in politics when he said that. He connected.
Yeah.
And I mean, some would say the election was over at that point. But, pricing, gas.
You see pricing all parts of your life,
Right.
Now, that's a question to you. Would you drive down the street, an extra half mile for 5 or 10 cents off your fuel price?
No.
It's interesting, isn't
My father would have.
My father will.
He will.
No.
I will not.
No. My father calls me from Georgia and asks, so what's the gas running? I have no idea. I drive up to the closest pump and I pump it. Yeah. I don't even look. I'm like, what's the point?
Is what it is.
I need the gas.
Even if there's gas stations on opposite corners, like whichever side I'm on, that's where I'm going.
That's it.
Got an easy place to pull in. I can get right in there.
Yeah.
Get in, get out.
But we all have friends who they do select based on the penny.
So that's a good story in pricing, right? That's what you care about. It's not is the convenience,
right?
The quality.
That's right.
Just pull up to any old station, and they'll drive extra miles to there's one around the corner for me that I won't drive into. It's packed in East Nashville.
Oh yeah,
20 cars.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not going to sit and wait.
But it's like 20 cents cheaper than everything else. That's why
Right.
everybody's there. But that's the opposite for me. I'm not going to stand in line, park in line, and wait for that. So, yeah, that's.
It's good.
Now, if they were handing out some Promised Land chocolate milk with the gas,
with a purchase,
I would wait.
Oh yeah. There is one place.
I'm trying hard, Promised Land.
Hook
me up.
Happening today? Isn't it?
Have you tried all different kinds of brands?
I have tried all kinds of chocolate milks. Absolutely, I am a chocolate milk connoisseur.
Wow.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a sommelier version of chocolate milk, but
yeah,
I could do that.
You could do that.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to set up this last question in a weird way, but
we're to our last question.
Well, yeah.
Man, that's impressive.
I was watching a repeat of a Shark Tank the other day, and it was a guy that had created this little kind of a bucket thing that goes around trees for farmers, and it holds the water and it helps with irrigation and stuff. And I think he was charging like a dollar for it or something like that. And all the sharks were like, why are you selling it for so cheap? Like, why not $4 or $7? And like, he did not know how to answer them. It was just like, well, it's farmers. It doesn't cost me that much. So, but he hadn't put really any thought into pricing strategy whatsoever. And I would imagine there are a lot of small business guys. I'm just thinking about like even a lot of vendors and stuff that we work with that don't really think about the ability to scale and add structure and those kinds of things.
Right.
They don't put any real thought into pricing. It's just like, what does it cost me? And I need to make like a little more than that. So
the whole cost plus pricing. Which is, that's the bane of my existence. People that don't
tell us why. Tell us what.
You want to put some time into it. You work really hard. You develop this great, like this gentleman's product that you were talking about. And then you just went out and thought, I'll just put 10-20% on it.
Yep.
You've now set the tone for where that product is priced for.
Those are my favorite antique dealers, though. Cost plus. Cost plus. I'm like, yes, call me.
You bet. So it's something that everybody ought to think a bit about because it's so critical to your revenue, your profitability. It's so critical to the success of your business. And it's probably one of the areas that there's not enough time put. Now, typically I'll say, look, if that's a new product, that's different. But if others are priced in the market, I'll just figure out what they're charging and I'll charge
Right.
that. And my challenge them back is just, how does that connect with your brand and what you're servicing?
Right.
So not just think about the product itself, like a coffee cup, but all the services you provide with it.
Right.
Right.
Do you a nice room to sit in?
Otherwise, it's a race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom, and the true value of what you offer. Like we have to teach them, like if you have all these services, but you charge the same as everybody else, and the others don't provide those services.
Sounds familiar.
You're actually giving money away. You're actually making less than the others, right? So you got to make sure your price. And that's why you see Starbucks,
right?
The quality of everything. But I was just listening. I was talking to you guys about
Yes.
the podcast I was listening to. It's the cup itself. He talked for 20 minutes about how he
Yes.
designed the cup.
Even the top.
The top of the cup.
The top of the cup.
There was nobody that had a lid.
Right.
That was the thing. Everybody had they could get a paper cup.
Right.
You didn't want styrofoam. You get a paper cup, but nobody had a lid. And he has to factor that into the price. When everybody says, well, this is a $5 latte.
That's
whatever,
right.
There's elements of, there's more than just the coffee itself
Way
inside,
more.
right? And how you position it and everything you provide. So it's I think in no matter what your size business, you need to be thinking about these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science. You can think
Right.
a little bit. You can kind of look at these things and then you test it a bit. And you see.
But you're able to give people perspective and experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I think it's important that you understand the value. and
What initial steps would you recommend a small business owner take
Yeah.
when they're really starting to think through pricing strategy? Like what's like, here's the first 1, 2, 3 things you need to do.
I think you need to understand, the first thing is there's different kinds of products and different kinds of situations. So it's not like a generic answer.
Sure,
I would be careful. Like if I'm in a business that there's a number of other competitors that have very similar products. First of all, I've got to have an honest conversation with myself about what I'm charging, what they're charging.
right.
Do I have a value that's more or less or the same? And I think the answer doesn't have to be, well, I have to have more services and more value. It doesn't. It's a fair share thing. If I price similar and I'm out there pushing, am I going to get a fair offer or a fair number of business back? And I think there's an element of this where you just got to have an honest conversation about where you really are. And sometimes we kind of overvalue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but they really love me, my customers. Is this a consumable product? Do they buy a lot of it? Well, that or a loyal customer. But there's a lot of people that will switch and without understanding. So I think first I want to have an honest conversation about where I really can differentiate myself or my products or my services. Is the first thing. The second, you got to know the math. It's not the price point; it's how much you're going to make,
right?
And you got to know the math of it. And a large number of people don't really know the math of it and don't really understand what that price means, and they just work really hard and put a good product out there, and people buy it. And I think you got to know
hope for the best.
Your math. You got to know your math. And that's math is where it is. And then I'd say the third thing is
stay in school, kids. Stay in school,
or at least hire somebody that
there you go.
Yeah,
like me or something.
There you go.
But, I think the third thing is it's not a set it and leave it and just walk away. This is a kind of a thing. You got to stay on top of it. Like you've got to stay on top in the real estate business of where prices really are, where the current market is. Sometimes you're setting the market. Sometimes you're taking where the market is, and you've got to stay on top of that. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just say, well, just keep pushing up. You won't sell. So you've got to have realistic conversations with your customers, people in this. You got to have a realistic conversation with yourself about adjusting to keep your business afloat. So pricing's more about creating this structure and making sure people stay on top of it.
That's good. Anyway. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, so for people that want to get a hold of you and engage you in your services, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So scott.green@profitdrivers.com. And my phone number is 954-242-5608. And that is not a Nashville number. That's a Miami number. I just thought I'd keep that.
Is there a website?
There's a website, www.profitdrivers.com.
Profitdrivers.com.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you today.
Thanks for having
He's
me.
a
Enjoyed
true
it.
mover and shaker.
Absolutely.
He's moving those price points and shaking it up.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, with that, we'll see you guys next time. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Behind the Curtain, Nashville's Movers, Shakers.
And taste makers.
We hope you've been inspired by the stories of passion, perseverance, and innovation right here in Nashville.
A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journeys and to you, our listeners, for joining us. And of course, our gratitude to Chord Real Estate for making this conversation possible.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.
Thank us.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I guess I did. Well, thank us. Okay.
Like I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform to catch every episode and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more fascinating guests lined up, ready to share their insights and inspirations.
And we love hearing from you. So reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for who you'd like to hear from next.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making your mark in Nashville.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember,
I'm talking to Casey
it's the
Kasem.
people behind the scenes that make the city shine.